Marcus Guillory increasingly is being considered one of the most talented emerging writers in America today. His short stories have been published in Outcry magazine, Secret Attic in the UK, and Dogmatica magazine, to name a few. He became the first American writer recently to write a Bollywood movie called Karma Confessions and Holy. Look out for that. And that adds to a long list of acclaimed commissioned screen and television work. Tonight he reads from his first novel, Read Now and Laters.
Good evening, New York.
Don't go to the club.
It's fun. This is my first time reading in New York. So if I do something wrong, don't tell me. Because I'm delicate. Now,
What is it about art, anyway, that we give it so much importance? Artists are respected by the poor because what they do is an honest way to get out of the slum, using one's sheer self as the medium. The money earned proof, pure and simple, of the value of that individual, the artist. The picture a mother's son does in jail hangs on her wall as proof that beauty is possible even in the most wretched. And this is a much different idea than the fancier notion that art is a scam and a rip-off. But you could never explain to someone who uses God's gift to enslave that you have used God's gift to be free.
now it's 5:10 in the morning,
Be free. Be free.
and I can't finish the sentence, and I'm full of tobacco, Jack Daniels, coffee, and water. And I'm looking at 500 people sweating, dancing. I'm playing house music. I'm a DJ. That's my other life. And I can't finish the sentence. And I'm thinking about this sentence. I can't finish this sentence. I'm thinking about home because I'm from Houston.
The idea of the
But I'm DJing in
unrecognized
LA.
genius slaving away in a
But
garret
I
is a
cannot
deliciously
finish
foolish
this
one.
sentence.
We must credit the life of Vincent van Gogh for really sending this myth into order.
And I've been up for 3 days
I mean, how many pictures did he sell?
writing
One.
and making music.
Couldn't give them away.
And the promoter is late with my money and I need to pay the rent.
He couldn't give them away.
I need some ramen noodles. I need some more cigarettes and some more coffee. And then the car runs out of gas. So I'm in downtown LA and I'm walking home. And you can kill the music.
He has to be the most modern artist, but everybody...
That's not a poem or a story. That's real life. I started writing Red Annihilators while simultaneously producing an album for Oshunlade's Yoruba Records about 2 years ago. And what happened was I was writing short stories in between writing screenplays. And when you write screenplays in Hollywood, there's a lag time of waiting for 30 or 40 people to agree that they're going to put money behind what you do. Now, you can go crazy. You can get into designer spirituality, you know, you get into soy and veganism. This is LA. You can find whatever you need to do to placate your weight, because that is what the game is. Me, with limited resources, I chose to take that time and develop more material. But I was experiencing something that was weird emotionally. I've been writing teleplays and screenplays for 10 years. The Portuguese sometimes have a term called saudade, which in many respects really means that the love remains, everything else is gone, and there's a sense you will not get back to it. And I was very aware of that emotion. I was very aware that I was 2,000 miles away from anybody that talks like me, or that cooks like me, or that has a similar narrative. And I had to fight that feeling. Because when we don't think we can get back to it, then we lose it. So I was lonely. And I started writing about the little kids in Houston, Texas that I grew up with. And I thought about the things as a little black boy in a neighborhood called South Park that was important to us. Candy. Ain't your mama pretty? She got meatballs on her titties. Shut up and quit talking about my mama, said Pork Chop. Here said Raymond Earl, holding me a red annihilator candy. Now, he had a whole pack of them, red or cherry, as the label said, but we all knew it as red, like many little black boys around the country. Red, our flavor, sometimes called strawberry or raspberry or fruit punch. Yet none of those labels mattered. With us, the flavor was red, red, the official color and flavor of all little black boys. Red made that noise. Red the sweetest. Red the king. Red the blood. Red is black. Red is the black savior. Red is truth. Truth that a red shag carpet leads the way to little black boy heaven, where red angels answer the promise and keep the secrets. And if God ain't black, then he's red, brother. Red the danger. Red the death. Bleeding out on concrete, asphalt, and dirt roads, where little black boys learn the mysteries of niggerdom, whether they want to or not. Red the life that pumps through our little veins, flowing through the body of he who will make a choice or assume niggerdom until red the life calls it quits. Now sure, there was apple and grape, but none of those flavors ever mattered. The choice would always be red, not cherry, strawberry, raspberry, or fruit punch, just red. Now there's a whole group, a whole generation of, I would say a whole generation of black men who understood the significance of the red annihilator, the same way the little girls like sour apple. So if I was a woman, I'd probably call it, sour apple annihilators. This book deals with a tradition in Louisiana Creole culture that we call traiteurs. Traiteurs are what you would call a faith healer or a spiritual healer. And this is different from a holistic herbologist, homeopath. It's a mixture of faith, belief, and a little bit of magic. Now, what sparked this was Popeye's commercials. Because girlfriend is not from Louisiana. She's not. And we don't get excited about biscuits. So what happened was, I really got insulted that my culture had been reduced to an adjective for food. And that there was a lot of misconstruction with the term Creole, typically by one of two types of variations. And by no means a smudge, but just reality. There's the historical New Orleanian post-colonial paradigm, and rice, and our exoticism. Look at the golden Creole. What are they? Then there's the our friends in Cane River, the plantation romance, the compromise mulatrice quadroon. Always the idea of the compromised, fair-complected person. To the extent that for a good period of time, if a black person said they were Creole, their fellow black folks would look at them crazy. Or say, don't eat the red sauce. So after watching the Popeyes commercials for a few years and growing more upset with the misrepresentation of my culture and talking about and missing the people that nurtured me and loved me and having a really good experience with the Southwestern Creole in the country, I decided, okay, well, let's really talk about that. My name is Marcus John Guillory, and I come from two of the oldest families in Louisiana. Older than this country, older than the state of Louisiana, the Guillorys and the Fontenot's. And by all estimations, I'm 100% Louisiana Creole. Not half, not kinda, not sorta. And been white folks in our family for a couple 100 years. This is how we look. Not all of us look this way, but this is how we look. The majority of our folks come from agricultural systems, farmers, and later on offshore workers, nursing, teaching. We keep to ourselves and we don't really make a show of who we are, what we do. We leave that for New Orleans. But I did decide that someone from the bayou should say something, and it shouldn't be a Cajun, and it shouldn't be a fiddle, and it shouldn't necessarily be about food, and the book doesn't have to be called Etouffee or Gumbo or Jambalaya. And there are no recipes in here. I'm sorry. I thought about it, but that would be way too, you know. I was looking for a narrative thread that was very intimate to our culture. And the tradition of the trattoria was something very intimate to our culture. Now, the idea of the treater is seen around the world in communities, third world, first and second, and typically in disenfranchised of folks who at some point didn't have access to health care and medical facilities. To that extent, we take care of ourselves, from the shaman to the healer. All types of indigenous cultures around the world has someone to go to. We don't advertise the trattoria. There is no Popeyes commercial saying, get your biscuits and get treated on, honey. So that's where I started. The other thing is that the book is a bit Catholic to the extent that most of us grew up in that tradition. And that the idea of faith and how our faith develops was a theme that I wanted to work with in this story. And our particular character, T. John, is going through a bit of a religious awakening as he is slowly discovering that he has a gift as a treater that is inherited. But he has more pressing theological questions at the age of 8. Houston, Texas, 1981. Once during noon mass, Black Jesus showed up at St. Philip Neri Catholic Church, reeking of Tanqueray and Aramis cologne. He was shaving in a water fountain behind the sacristy. I saw him. He had on a robe and sandals just like the pictures, except his hair was nappy as hell. He asked me to be an altar boy and told me Santa Claus was a fake. I got a whipping when I told Mother, not because she thought I was lying. She was pissed that I thought I said our Lord and Savior's hair was nappy. You know, Jesus wept and bought some relaxer. Now, years later, kind of pitch black, Aramis cologne. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Hey, T. John. Hey, Father Jerome, can I holler at you for a minute? Pitch black. Now, I had peed in the water fountain at school while the 4th and 5th graders had assembly at St. Andrews. Free to be you and me, you know. I took the meaning a little too literal. I mean, while Rosie Greer was telling us that it was all right to cry, I stood on a chair and painted my initials with urine in the fountain. I mean, Rosie was a bitch or something. I just couldn't see his big ass crying. And there's only so much a 5th grader will believe. And after that dice scene with Father and that Saunier dude at Little Aubrey's, I just wasn't sure what to believe anymore. At every turn, some grown-up was shattering myths left and right. Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, Santa Fraud. The whole lot of them were peddled to kids with promises of candies and toys and coins under pillows, and I had never seen one of them fucking frauds. But Black Jesus and Saunier, they were real, at least to me. Now, Father Jerome chuckled when I told him about Black Jesus and Saunier as we walked around the parish hall parking lot for confession while he smoked a cig. And by now, the parish was his. I mean, he owned it. He chain smoked. He shadow boxed most days at noon, wearing khakis and a white tee until both were drenched. He played music a lot, usually soul and jazz, and he'd jog in the mornings while imagining he was playing a trumpet. Miles Davis on Gabriel's horn. Ave Maria in B-flat with Tony Williams on skins, Ron Carter holding down the bass, and Herbie Hancock on the 88s. And so I asked, is there such thing as spirits? No, of course, Father Jerome answered. I mean, do they look like Saunier? And Saunier's Creole, he's black. Usually you can't see him, T. John. But I saw Saunier, he black, and he got straight hair like my daddy. Well, he shrugged. I think he didn't know the answer, or he wasn't saying. So I continued, and I said, in the CCE book, they show the angels, and the angels are white. Is that what spirits look like? I asked, a fair question. He says, T. John, I believe spirits come in all colors. Like crayons? Yeah, like crayons. So why does CCE book only show the white crayons? I mean angels. I mean, nobody even used the white crayons. Just saying. When you growed up, and I did say growed, in the South, going to Catholic school in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 50s, 40s, we grow up with an idea that Jesus, his disciples, Virgin Mary, God, angels, all them white and look like the dude from Star Trek, the first one. And God's supposed to be cool with you, but hell, he don't look like you. Sometimes children create their own gods before they're shown otherwise. And that's kind of what we're dealing with our kid here as he moves forward in life. But I want to address one other thing, because his father begins to show him the ways of a traiteur. Now, during the research for this novel, because I did do research, even though I grew up in this environment, in this culture, I had an opportunity to interview a man named Stan Lamel, who's probably the most famous traiteur in the Gulf Coast, and one of the oldest. He's in his late 80s. He's been treating since he was 11. And so there's rules to this thing, rules that aren't on the Popeyes commercial. So before you guys think I'm gonna work a root on all of you, if you don't buy my book, we're gonna get some clarity on the matter. Every Creole does not know voodoo or hoodoo or whatever the hell else they're peddling in New Orleans. In fact, most Creoles are scared to death of the thought of it, as unfamiliar people are. And many confuse it as pedestrian devil worship. Although I never learned of anything or anyone called the devil a saint in Nunk's practice, academics and ballyhoos in the French Quarter had sold the popular consciousness on the vague idea of New Orleans hoodoo, practiced by spell casting quadroons who sought revenge or profit, all part of the bullshit associated with my people due to the profit-seeking sensationalists in the New Orleans Tourist Bureau, who marketed Cajun and Creole as basically the same thing, and that gumbo is red unless you add filet. Now, many of those opportunists were Creoles who wrote verse after study after prose, constantly explaining themselves, explaining their Americanism, their Frankism, even strangely enough, their Africanism, explaining their Creole, but not us. We were people of the land, the Southwest Creoles, Creoles of the Bayou Country, Azaka's children. We felt no need to explain ourselves to any damn body because not many had been in a territory longer than us, save the Native Americans. We kept to ourselves and our land and our language and our traditions. We created Zydeco and didn't know what the hell a second line was until we visited our bourgeois cousins in the 7th Ward of New Orleans during Carnival. The vast majority of us grew up believing in the Holy Trinity and the Catholic Church, yet most everybody from Lake Charles to Baton Rouge knew somebody who was a traiteur, versed in the right-hand practice. Yet very few knew anyone who was familiar with the left hand, and most spoke of those practitioners as evildoers. Now, what Father told me on that horse ride was plain and simple. I'm a Boudreaux man, a natural-born traiteur and sorcier, born with two heads, whose teeth bone on, so little guardian spirit could access the other side. Oh, great, I thought, now I'm a fucking witch. What else, Lord? But I tempered my cynicism and listened. The practice required adeptness in hand signs, drawings, and a working knowledge of basic Creole, Latin, Haitian Creole, and various phrases from the Native American Dahomey tribes, particularly the Congo. Hand movements and drawings were methods to communicate with and to summon old Noxonier, and petitions cost, grievances are free, on the ground for the left, off the ground for the right, in the air for emergencies. A well-intended whisper is the loudest. The left hand strikes, the right hand soothes. I can't tell you exactly what Father told me because it's a secret, and Nonk would get mad, but I can say that the sky is a notebook with no lines or numbers, one big page, just one page for petition or grievance. The ground is another page, one big brown page for requests. Please gimme, gimme, gimme. One page for gratitude. Merci beaucoup, bon Dieu. With both pages, I began a correspondence with the stars, and it wasn't being Catholic or even religious. It was about knowing that I belonged to something bigger than myself, more alive, more powerful. It was about knowing that some special thing was actually looking out for me, and I knew its name. Not a grand sweeping name like Jesus, God, Buddha, Allah, Obatala, Muhammad, Krishna, or the like. I knew there was someone specifically assigned in my case, and I could ask him for shit. His name, of course, was Jules Saint-Pierre Saunier, FMC. First off, this book isn't jambalaya, so I'm not going to give you all the hookups in it. There are no recipes either. You got to get your gree-gree somewhere else. What I wanted to explore was the frame of mind of someone who is actually gifted, who actually has a gift. Some of it had to do with watching Harry Potter and saying, oh, he has magic. He can make things appear. That must be really cool. Or is it? Maybe you're going to see some things you don't want to see. And our young hero here, unfortunately, has to go through that. His father's going to teach him as much as he can about the left and the right hand. He's going to grow up. He's going to get beat up. He's going to fall in love. And he's going to do some of the beating. And just with one simple request that the next day will be kinder than the last. We're going to follow him from 5 years old to 17, where he is at one with the gift that the gods have given him, and that passes through his DNA, and the language changes. And on this, we'll end. This is called Kush Kush and Kaye for skeptics. Kush Kush and Kaye is like cornbread and milk, you know. Grease, burning grease in the air, hog skin, wild hog skin burning in grease, and I can smell it. Am I at St. Andrews trekking along the tree line? No. I hear a fiddle, scratchy, buoyant, delightful, an old fiddle, an up-tempo waltz accompanied by a heavy stump. I'm facing the forest, the beginning of the forest. I turn around as an anxious hawk falls upon the smelly cottonmouth, grapples with claws. Up they go, up to that great albino in the sky for cottonmouth coubillon. Behind me, I see a large, dried-out field littered with dug-out holes, pockmarked. People are in the forest. I hear the voices, familiar voices. I think they know me. It feels that way. The hawk is a dot in the sky. I take a step towards the familiar. I'm in the woods. I'm sure of it. But I'm not in the woods behind my house. I'm somewhere else. It smells different. Burning grease. The fiddle plays, calls. I move through the forest, and I haven't taken a step. Hickory nut, fig, cypress, oak, pine needles. There's a creek with tadpoles that glow. I drink the water from the creek, sweet water. Over the creek, the voices are louder. This ain't no dream, boy. Someone is singing along with the fiddle. A man is singing in Creole. Past the creek, there's a house with a tin roof. The house is made of cypress planks and sits on 2-foot wooden blocks. In the yard, several men are gutting a huge hog. The back door is open. On a stump, a tall man with big hands, broad shoulders, plays the fiddle with closed eyes. He is my grandfather, Paul Boudreaux. I never met him, and I've only seen one picture of him, but I know it's him. I'm in the kitchen now. Several women are cooking and chatting. I listen Creole. I'm managing. Amadeo Ardouin died in an asylum in Pineville. Timothy Fontenot was still missing. The women are stuffing boudin. The Klan are burning down black-owned grain silos. Pajun got thrown in jail in Elton. Emile Victorian is still courting that Laurent girl. Coon spotted Nonk Sonia by the creek. What? I'm in the woods again near the house. A little boy sits on the ground digging a hole next to a sweet potato kill. He puts a clay crock jar in the hole and covers it. And I remember what Father said. Now, back in the country, when I was small, we'd have a boucherie ever so often. We'd kill a couple of hogs, maybe a cow, then carve up the meat and give it out to everybody in the area with the hog skin. We'd fry it for crackling. We'd salt the meat, put a veil on it, then bury it in the ground to keep it fresh. And in those days, everybody was poor. So we'd have to have a boucherie to share the meat because it was important that we all had something to eat. We took care of ourselves. Monig. The little boy turns quickly towards the voice. Venez ici. He looks around a bit frightened. It's the voice. He knows that voice. It scares him. I'm near. I look down at my bare feet. I take a step, then another, and walk closer to him. Qui c'est que toi? He says, voice gently trembling. He's no more than 3 years old. His little face is dirty, as are his hands and his clothes. His cotton shirt is too big for him. He wants to run away, but he sees that I'm big and I can catch him. Fais pouvons, I say as calmly as possible. He doesn't believe me. He looks familiar, more than familiar. His dark, fine hair is pulled back into a ponytail, tied together with a worn shoestring. He's poor. He's been poor for some time. Ghetto. It's in his eyes, his big chestnut eyes. I know him. I hold out my hand. He holds out an open palm. Something is in his palm. Something stares at me as from his palm. It's a red cicada. Quiet, still, winged ruby of God. It stares at me. It's hot. I feel it. The child smiles. I'm not going to hurt you, I say. But he's circumspect. The fiddle changes tune and tempo. More spirited, more intense. The women laugh in the kitchen. He doesn't understand English. I remember I slowly place my right hand over my heart, then extended palm to the sky. He understands and smiles with the innocence of a newborn. He places the red cicada atop his head and takes my hand as he rises. Lève-toi. He's peed on himself, but he's not embarrassed. He's too young to be vain. Qu'est-ce que toi? He asks again. but how can I tell him he's my father? Tona me, I say. He smiles and takes the red insect from his crown with precious reverence. Passe-toi, he says. I bend over. He places the red bug atop my head. It's heavy, very heavy and hot, hot cold, but he doesn't burn. Rather, it belongs. I don't sense this belonging. I know it like old thoughts. I don't know why, but I straighten up. It's heavy. Then it's not heavy. It's hotter, but it's no longer hot. The child smiles proudly as the red bug on in my head begins to sing. God watches, doesn't watch. Time passes, doesn't pass. The child runs behind a shed, then returns with a tattered white baby doll he holds out proudly with a big smile. Qui c'est ça, I ask. Bébé blanc, c'est mon cousin, he says with certainty. Ekun, come see. He runs into the house with wet palms and a white baby doll in his hand. The singing red cicada takes flight through an opening in the sylvan ceiling towards the sun, and I am riding the red cicada, Icarus reborn as a light-skinned nigger boy, making good luck with the assistance of the gods, wings melded to the body magnificent with sugarcane juice and wet prayers. The red cicada insists that we won't fall nor burn, but shine in the mighty red sun that Jesus secretly scorned for 40 days. I look below and I see them pointing at me, the dead, all standing in the pockmarked field of burnt cane stalk, and the cicada stops singing, but its song becomes my heartbeat, and my feet on the ground electric, and I do not wince, I do not itch. I just feel the thoughts and prayers of those before me, and I am not alone. Burning greases in the air, and more people are arriving by horse and wagon. Boissec Ardouin arrives with an accordion, joins Paul in a tribute to his late cousin, Amadi. I'm in a field of sugar cane, muddy ground. The cane looks down on me. Bonsoir, cousin, they say and sing. And the night sky is hot orange, fire everywhere, closer. Don't run, T-John, Daddy. Dark faces between the stalks, eyes moving closer. Don't run, nephew, nonk. 5, I'm about to roll a 5. As orange walls of flame surround me, breathe it in. Take that boy to church. I close my eyes. The red cicadas scream. Then silence. And on the third day, he rose again in fulfillment of the scriptures. Thank you.